An actual real Canadian Senator, Don Plett, submitted an order paper question about, what the status of the assault-style weapons liberal buyback is, and things started unraveling from there.
So he had some concerns because, as you know, this program has already cost taxpayers over $67 million. Not a single firearm has been collected from anybody. And he was curious as to how that money was being spent and who was getting the contracts and for what. So the government has a requirement that they have to formally respond to these order paper questions with a written response. So Jennifer O'Connell, our favorite friend, parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Public Safety, sent him a response. And I was reading through it. It's a couple pages long, and they're detailing who got what and what was spent on what. And among the $67 million of wasted taxpayer money, there was an amount totaling over $9 million to a consulting company called Samson and Associates. So I was curious, well, what do they do? I've actually never heard of them before. So I got out the Google machine and looked them up. They do a bunch of IT work and database stuff and online technology. And I thought, okay, well, that might make sense because a lot of this will have to do with collecting data from stores and from gun owners and whatnot. So while I'm perusing their website, I scroll down to the bottom and I see they've got a number of offices, I think 5 or 6 of them across kind of Ontario, Quebec region. And 3 of them were within a 15 or 20 minute drive of my house. So I went on a little field trip and I thought, well, hit up the Ottawa office first. It's just down in the Glebe. It's not too far. And the reason I wanted to go there and see it is because on Google Street View, it showed me a home with no signage. And I thought, that can't be right. That's not an office. But you and I talked about it. And you said, well, maybe it's an old image. Maybe something's been updated with the building. So, okay, I jump in the car. I go down there and the building has been redone, but it's been split into 2 apartments. There's no signage anywhere. It's a residential area. So I ring the first doorbell. Nothing happens. I ring the second doorbell and this cute little old man comes to the door in his pajamas. Mind you, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. It's not particularly early. And he proceeds to tell me that that's not really their office and that they just use that address to collect mail at. And I apologized for interrupting him in the morning and he's out there in his pajamas. And he said he did do some consulting or some independent work for them, but they just use the address for mail and I would be better off to head over to their head office in Gatineau. So I took his advice. I jumped in the car and I went across the bridge to Gatineau and I went to their office there. This was an actual office. It actually looked like an old stone church. It was a beautiful little building, but of course inside completely deserted. I've got video of this and audio to share with everybody and you'll find that on my Twitter feed. But I found a deserted building. There was no interior signage. There was a sign on the outside of the building, but the reception area had no signage. There was no business cards. There's no materials, no pamphlets, nothing. There was a lady in there. I don't know if she was administrative or a cleaning lady. She wrote down a couple of email addresses for me to contact people, keeping in mind this is their head office of their corporation. I said, okay, while I'm over here on the Quebec side, I'm going to jump back in the car and head over to Chelsea, Quebec. Beautiful little area right across the bridge. So I went over there and it was kind of the same story. I went into this building. There was a few shops on the main floor. Samson and Associates was supposed to be in suite 203. I went up the stairs and it was like an open concept office space with a bunch of different construction type contractors and building designer type companies.
Like it's like a shared office.
Yeah. And I could see a sign that said Samson and Associates Design and Graphics, which is different than Samson and Associates Consulting. So I was like, wow, I'm really confused now. However, this was all listed on their website as their offices. And again, completely deserted, not a soul in the building. Desks were dusty, like there's nothing going on there. So I don't know, but $9 million worth of consulting, that's a fairly substantial contract. And yet I never did get to actually speak to any human beings other than people I was passing in the hallways. I don't know. I mean, I guess people have to draw their own conclusions on that. But for a big corporation, they sure are hard to locate.
$9 million. And just to give you an idea, like a small business with maybe like 7 people or whatever, most small businesses of that size, they operate between $2 and $3 million a year in revenue, typically, depending on the business, obviously, right? A contracting business is different than a consulting business, which is different than an import business.
Right.
But still, a business like ours, we operate on about anywhere between $1.9 and $2.5 million per year. We got 7 people, including spending, $700,000 a year in lawsuits against the government and other things, right? $9 million. You have a residential address, you got deserted shared offices and whatever, 6 locations, but nobody really working in any of them. That's just interesting.
Well, and that's why I came home from that little field trip thinking, well, that's interesting. I don't know. It makes me want to go check out the other offices, but I couldn't find anyone. And you would think with their Gatineau office being promoted as their head office, it's their main office, and there wasn't a soul there. And this wasn't 7 a.m. morning or in the evening when typically nobody would be around. By the time I made it to Gatineau, it was 11 o'clock. So it's not like everyone was on lunch. There was nobody there, completely deserted. It was not what I expected. I expected, busy, bustling offices full of people doing consulting, whatever that is, and somebody there I could maybe talk to about their involvement with the program. But I never even got that far because it was just deserted, except for one old guy in his pajamas,
I just want to add this. As outrageous as that is, people should be outraged about that kind of stuff, right? And hey, I don't know, maybe these are 3 offices they don't use and their other 3 offices are full of people. But just think about $9 million over the course of whatever it is, a year or maybe 2 years, $4.5 million a year. Like that's a big, big business. So I don't know.
Even if nobody happened to be there right at that moment, which I would find hard to believe in an office building, for $9 million, even our volunteer field officers have business cards. She couldn't provide me with anything because there was literally not a single thing with their company name on it inside. So I came away with just a yellow Post-it note that she scribbled some email addresses on, which of course have not replied to me. But I don't know. It's just weird. You'd think there'd be a business card or something to give me, right?
Yeah, it's pretty strange. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's fully legit, but it doesn't feel like that to me. But anyway, it really wouldn't be a surprise with this Liberal government. I just want to go out of my way to say, if the Conservatives were in charge and the Conservatives were responsible for something like this or the GC strategies or any of the other stuff, I would be just as outraged because the only way to turn the whole system around is for people to stop doing stuff like this.
Yes.
Just stop it.
Well, and here's the other thing I mentioned it to somebody on the weekend. They said, well, it's only $9 million. And I think we're sort of desensitized because $9 million in Liberal speak is nothing, right? It's a drop in the bucket. I mean, they're wasting billions, if not trillions. So I guess when you look at it that way, but to me, the amount of work you could accomplish with $9 million, like I know what we do on a pretty tight budget, right? Imagine if we had funding like that. So I think we're getting too used to being ripped off that we just don't really.
Well, we're not saying that they're ripping us off or the government, but it sure looks that way.
Yeah, it doesn't smell good, that's for sure.
Yeah, good work on that. Doing a little super sleuthing. There's something that we don't usually do as the CCFR, but don't forget, download the CCFR mobile app for free on the Apple Store and Google Play. Thanks so much, everyone, for watching. Share the podcast. Take care, and I will see you in the next one.